Have you ever wanted to just really share your heart with the Lord? Like, just let Him have it? You look around, I know for me, I look around and so much evil in the world, so much junk going on, school shootings, innocent children being injured, innocent children being murdered, innocent children being kidnapped. And then we look at our own personal lives as well, and it just feels like one struggle after the other. And sometimes we just want to say, God, what are you doing? And I encourage you that God's okay with that. He's okay with you letting Him have it. If we look at the book of Psalm, and King David did not write the entire book, but he wrote a big bulk of it. And David was a man after God's own heart, the scripture tells us. But much of the book of Psalm, King David is doing that. His emotions are up and down, up and down. And there are a lot of times that when he's at his lowest, he's crying out to God. And he says, there's some of the scriptures where he says, God, where are you? Where are you in this? What are you doing? Let's look at Psalm 82:2 says, how long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? God, it feels like evil prevails and that those of us who are trying so hard, we keep losing. We keep being attacked. And so David just cries out to God and he says, God, what are you doing? Where are you? Are you just sitting up there in heaven with your feet propped up and letting everything down here just go to pot? God, what are you doing? And then in the book of Habakkuk, I have grown to love that book. It's a very short book. But Habakkuk was a prophet to the nation of Judah. And the entire book of Habakkuk is Habakkuk crying out to God about evil and just saying, God, why? Why does this go on? Let's look at Habakkuk 1:13 says, why do you tolerate those who are treacherous? Why are you silent, God? Are you even there? And so the entire book of Habakkuk is Habakkuk asking God, where are you? Do you even know that we're going through this? And so he just continues to cry out to God, and he lets God have it. He says, God, you're big enough to fix it all. And that's what King David says to him in the book of Psalm. God, your word, you could speak the word, and all of this evil would go away. You could speak the word and peace would come on all of us. And then in Habakkuk 3, that's some of my favorite scripture, is where after Habakkuk has just shared his heart with God and he has let God have it, he said, but God, even if the stalls are empty and the figs don't grow, and even if there are no cattle in the field, if everything I have goes to pot, and if every bad thing that could possibly happen to me were to happen to me, I would still praise you. I would still love you. And for King David in the book of Psalm, I just love Mark Lowry. I know I've talked about him before. He's a Christian comedian. But he says that if Prozac had been around when David wrote the book of Psalm, or when the book of Psalm was written by whoever, David and Asaph or whoever, if Prozac had been around, we wouldn't have the book of Psalm. Because this is how the book of Psalm is. It is up and down, up and down. It is like just, God, where are you and what are you doing? And evil is abounding and they're coming after me on every side. And anything that could go wrong in my life has gone wrong in my life. Where are you, God? And then he always ends, whoever the writer is, for a particular chapter, he always ends at praising the Lord. Because if you spend time long enough talking to God, even if you're letting him have it, even if you're sharing your heart, even if you're begging him to change your circumstances, even if you're crying out and saying, God, I do not like what's going on. I don't appreciate what you're putting me through. All you got to do is spend time with him. And we can't spend time with him very long until we turn from letting him have it to just praising him for who he is and resting in his arms. Because when we crawl up in his lap and we beat his chest, and he's okay with that, we crawl up in his lap and we beat his chest, crying out for the lives of our children, or crying out for the life of our spouse, or crying out for the life of our marriage, or crying out for our finances, or crying out for whatever is going on in our life, and we're just beating his chest and we're saying, God, where are you? God, why is this happening? And we let him have it. And he just sits there, and he sits there with his arms open wide, and he lets us share our heart. He lets us let him have it. And when we're done, we collapse in the lap of an almighty, everlasting, loving, faithful God. And he takes those big old arms and he pulls us to his chest because we are his children. And he says, I've got this. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not going to let you perish. I promise not to let you perish. And that is his word to us. Let me find a particular scripture right quick. Bear with me. That I wanted to share this particular one where it says that we will not be consumed. I got to find it. He promises we will not be consumed. Here it is, Malachi 3:6. God doesn't change. Listen, he's the same yesterday, today, and he'll be the same tomorrow. He was the same back in the Bible day. He's the same now in 2016. And if time tarries and he does not come back to get us, he will be the same in year 3022. He's the same always. And it says, Malachi 3:6 says, God doesn't change. And because he doesn't change, I won't be consumed. And so God wraps us in his arms after we're through just crying out to him and begging him to fix a particular situation. And he just pulls us to his chest and he says, I'm not going to change. It's okay. I will not let you be consumed. Malachi 3:6. And so I encourage you today, if you're struggling with God and who God is, and you're struggling with what God is allowing to happen in your personal life or in the world around us, I encourage you to let him have it. Share your heart. Tell him how you feel. He's okay with that. He is not threatened by that. He is not intimidated by that. He is not offended by that. He wants us to spend time with him. And he says, if it takes you getting mad at me and blowing me out in order for you to spend time with me, come on, bring it. Bring it, sister. Climb up in my lap and let me have it. I'm big enough to handle it. And he just sits there and lets us do it. And when we're done, he wraps us up. And he says, I'm not going to let you be consumed. So I encourage you today, if you are struggling in any area of your life, tell God about it. Share your heart with the Lord. He wants you to. He already knows it. He already knows what you need. He already knows how to fix it. But he wants us to come to him and share our heart. So do it, even if you're angry. But stay in his presence long enough for him to talk back to you. Long enough for him to bring the truth of the scripture to your heart. And that truth is that he will never leave us. He will never forsake us. He will not allow us to be consumed because he is faithful to us. Another scripture is Deuteronomy 32:4. God's way and his work is perfect. We talked about the other day. He's a good, good father. And he's perfect in all of his ways, even when his ways seem so wrong to us. But Deuteronomy 32:4 says, God's way and work is perfect, and he is faithful to me. So he says that to you. He says, my way's perfect. I know what I'm doing, and I'm faithful to you. I'm not going to abandon you. Let him have it today, and then rest in his arms of mercy.